we're going to talk about tariffs. Right now, it looks like tariffs do not apply to books that are entering America, just to the ones entering other countries. According to the American Booksellers Association, U.S. tariffs have exemptions for printed books, brochures, leaflets, and similar printed matter in single sheets, whether or not folded. In short, the new tariffs don't seem to apply directly to books, but book prices will probably still rise based on paper prices and on fuel prices. China, on the other hand, has an 80 currently. It will probably go up, has an 84% tariff on American books. Thomas, what are your thoughts on how this is going to affect authors, and how much of a price hike should we be considering for our books to handle the costs?
So this is a big update from last week, a correction, if you will. So last week when we were talking about tariffs, we were talking about the tariffs on the rhetorical level. So how trade wars work is that you'll have heads of state like Xi Jinping or his spokespeople, or Donald Trump and his spokespeople, who will make statements like 84% tariff or 145% tariff. And often there are, and then so that's announced, and the market will respond to that announcement. And then a few days later, you'll get a press release or an executive order or some equivalent that has the details of what that actually means. Because very often there are carve outs. So, for instance, we have supposedly an embargo against Cuba, right? Where we don't sell anything to Cuba. But if you look at the details, you'll note this isn't true. We actually sell billions of dollars of things to Cuba because there's two categories that are exempted from the embargo, and those are food and medicine. And so we carpet bomb Cuba with wheat from Kansas and corn from Nebraska and many other American agricultural products. And the same is often true with tariffs. So we were assuming that books would be tariffed because we didn't have the details of the tariff proposal. And there's certain books like Bibles that really only can be printed in China. And again, we talked about last time, the high-end books often come from China. And it turns out, now that we have the details, that the Trump's tariff doesn't apply to books coming in from China. That whole category, not just Bibles, but all books, are exempted. But China does have a tariff, a massive tariff on American books. And I will say it has always been difficult to sell American books in China. Even without the tariff, they have such strong freedom of speech controls that getting placed on bookshelves and getting through the Great Firewall of China is very difficult. So people in China don't have access to the full internet. They have a censored version of the internet, and they don't have access to the same search engines that we do. And they have what's known as the Great Firewall of China, which is a series of blocks at all of the internet connections between Chinese computers and non-Chinese computers, where things are severely censored, and they'll get error pages where you would not get an error page. Historically, the way around the Great Firewall of China is with a VPN, which is one of the only legit uses of a VPN. But now, from what I've heard lately, is that China now blocks most VPNs. So you no longer can use a VPN to avoid the Great Firewall of China. And they're not just blocking American books, they're putting a massive tariff on American books, but they're also reducing film imports.
Yeah.
So I've been tracking, the whole stock market is up right now, except for Disney. Disney and Netflix are the only of the stocks that I track in my stock app. Everything is in the green except for Netflix. Actually, Meta just went into the red, or Meta's in the red, and Disney. So Disney and Netflix are both being impacted by the same news story, which is that China is going to be cracking down on Hollywood films.
Yeah.
And this has already been happening to Disney. So one of the interesting things with this tariff war is that bad behaviors that China has been doing for a long time, like having blocks on American books, high tariffs on American books, and blocking American films, they've actually been doing that for a while. The Chinese Communist Party determines which movies can play in China and which ones cannot. Right. So what was that Marvel movie with the 7 rings? Shang-Chi, which was supposed to be for the Chinese market, right? It was the Marvel movie with the Chinese hero for the Chinese market. They said no. it offended somebody in the CCP. They blocked that whole movie. I think one of the actors said something about Taiwan being a country or acknowledged
Yeah.
it, and that made the Chinese Communist Party very angry. And um, and so they blocked the whole film, and then they blocked several more films. So a lot of Disney movies aren't able to play in China. Some are. They all can be pirated in China.
China pirate? What?
So you're way into the Chinese market now. More and more is through pirate networks, which won't pay you any money, but at least can get your story or your ideas spreading in China.